It turns out your brain's optimal performance isn't found in monumental leaps, but in a delicate, almost imperceptible stretch, precisely a 4% increase in challenge over your current skill level. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a neurological sweet spot, a hidden code within your own gray matter that, once understood, unlocks immediate, profound flow states and dramatically amplified focus. It is the single most powerful lever for sustained cognitive output that neuroscience has unveiled. Today, we are going to dive deep into the specific brain mechanisms that respond to this exact level of challenge. You will understand how your internal reward system, the very engine of your motivation, either engages or disengages based on this precise balance, preventing both the corrosive dullness of boredom and the debilitating grip of anxiety. You will learn to consistently activate your brain's prime state, transforming your work from a struggle into a deep, rewarding immersion. Our brains are constantly seeking an optimal level of stimulation, a delicate balance between novelty and familiarity. Too much familiarity, and the neural circuits dedicated to attention simply dim, becoming bored. Think of a repetitive factory line task where every move is automated, requiring minimal cognitive effort. Your brain, in its incredible efficiency, allocates fewer resources and your attention drifts. Conversely, when a task is too challenging, when the demands far exceed your perceived abilities, a different set of neural alarms begins to blare. The amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, can become overactive, releasing cortisol and adrenaline, pushing you into a state of anxiety or even panic. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive functions like planning and problem solving, essentially freezes, unable to access the resources it needs. Neither extreme is conducive to high-level thought or sustained productivity. So, what is the brain doing when it's truly engaged? It's not just working harder, it's working smarter in a state psychologists call flow. Research by figures like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, as far back as his 1990s work, meticulously documented the subjective experience of flow. But modern neuroscience has now illuminated the internal symphony that accompanies it. When you are in flow, there's a transient hypofrontality, a temporary deactivation of parts of the prefrontal cortex involved in self-monitoring and critical thinking. This isn't a shutdown, it's a streamlining. It allows other brain regions, particularly those involved in pure task execution and pattern recognition, to operate with maximal efficiency. Simultaneously, the brain's reward system, heavily reliant on dopamine, begins to hum. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's about motivation, learning, and prediction error. When a task is just challenging enough, when there's a slight stretch beyond what you currently master, but not so much that it feels impossible, the brain experiences small, consistent wins. These aren't grand triumphs, but micro-advances, continuous successful predictions, and minor obstacles overcome. Each of these moments triggers a controlled release of dopamine, reinforcing the behavior, deepening engagement, and urging you forward. It's like your brain is getting a continuous, gentle pat on the back saying, "Yes, this is good. Keep going. You're learning." This precise 4% increase in challenge is the Goldilocks zone for your neural networks. It's just enough novelty to prevent habituation and boredom, just enough demand to require your full attention and activate learning pathways, but not so much that it triggers the stress response. Consider for a moment how often your own work oscillates wildly between tasks that are mind-numbingly easy and those that feel utterly overwhelming. How many times have you found yourself procrastinating on a complex report, not because you're lazy, but because your brain perceives the task as an insurmountable wall, triggering an anxiety response? Or, conversely, scrolling aimlessly through social media, simply because the current task is so trivial it offers no cognitive stimulation whatsoever. This dynamic is not a moral failing. It is a direct consequence of misunderstanding your brain's fundamental operating principles. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, you're an engineer tasked with optimizing a system you built last year. You know it inside and out. You implement the changes, but it feels like rote work, your mind wandering, making small, avoidable errors. This is the 0% challenge. Your brain is bored. Now, the same engineer is given a similar optimization task, but this time, there's a new, cutting-edge component involved that you've only read about casually. You know the basics, but applying it perfectly requires a solid 3 to 5 hours of focused learning and experimentation. This is the 4% stretch. Your brain immediately perceives a solvable problem, not an impossible one, but one requiring genuine engagement. Studies, such as the work by Garrison and colleagues in 2008, using fMRI to observe brain activity during tasks of varying difficulty, show clear distinctions. When individuals performed tasks that were optimally challenging, there was sustained activity in prefrontal regions associated with focus and problem solving, coupled with robust activation of dopaminergic pathways. The brain was literally alight with engaged learning. In contrast, tasks that were too easy showed reduced prefrontal activity, while overly difficult tasks triggered increased activity in areas related to stress and anxiety, demonstrating a fragmented, inefficient cognitive state. This isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter by calibrating your challenge precisely. When you consistently operate within this 4% zone, your neural pathways become more efficient, your learning accelerates, and your capacity for deep work expands dramatically. You not only produce higher quality output, but you do so with less mental fatigue and a profound sense of intrinsic satisfaction. Think of it as continuously sharpening the blade of your mind. The neural sweet spot doesn't just make you productive, it literally rewires your brain for sustained excellence. So, how do we translate this profound neural insight into immediate, actionable strategies? Here are 3 brain-based techniques you can implement today. First, the 4% micro-constraint. Before you begin any task, no matter how small, identify your current skill level. Then, introduce a deliberate, tiny constraint that pushes you just slightly beyond that. If you're writing a report you've written dozens of times, instead of just starting, commit to completing the first paragraph without touching your keyboard twice for any single word, forcing a more precise linguistic choice. Or, if you're coding, challenge yourself to write the next function using a slightly different, more elegant algorithm you've been meaning to explore. The goal is a measurable, almost imperceptible increase in cognitive demand. Your brain will register this as a new, interesting problem to solve, activating those dopamine-rich reward pathways from the outset, pulling you into focus rather than letting you drift. Second, dynamic difficulty adjustment. This is about constantly monitoring your internal state. Are you beginning to feel bored, your mind wandering, the task feeling monotonous? That's your signal. Increase the challenge by one small notch. Perhaps set a timer for 5 minutes and aim to complete a particular subtask within that compressed time frame, or try to find a novel solution to an old problem. Conversely, if you feel a hint of anxiety, a tightening in your chest, a sense of being overwhelmed by the task's complexity, that's your brain telling you the challenge level is too high. Decrease the difficulty slightly. Break the task into its absolute smallest components, focusing on just one tiny, achievable step. The key is to make these adjustments immediately, like a pilot constantly correcting course, maintaining your brain's optimal engagement. This continuous feedback loop keeps your prefrontal cortex primed and prevents both extremes from taking hold. Third, pre-computational priming for flow. Before you dive into a significant work block, take a mere 2 or 3 minutes to mentally rehearse the initial stages of your task. Don't just think about what you need to do. Visualize yourself successfully navigating the first 4% stretch. If you're preparing for a presentation, imagine yourself crafting the opening sentence with exceptional clarity or building a particularly compelling visual. By mentally pre-computing and envisioning the successful engagement with a slight challenge, you're actively priming your brain's reward system and prefrontal cortex. You're signaling to your brain that a solvable, rewarding challenge is coming, reducing initiation friction and making the transition into deep work almost seamless. It's like giving your brain a mental warm-up, activating the right neural networks before the heavy lifting begins. You are not a passive recipient of your mental states. You are the architect of your own cognitive landscape. Understanding the 4% flow code means you're no longer fighting against your brain's natural inclinations, but actively orchestrating its optimal performance. You're moving beyond simple productivity hacks and into a sophisticated partnership with your own neurology. You are learning to speak its language, to understand its delicate balance, and to guide it toward peak states of focus and accomplishment with precision. This isn't just about getting more done, It's about fundamentally reshaping your relationship with your work, your potential, and yourself. You become someone who understands the nuanced dance between challenge and skill, recognizing the exact neural sweet spot that transforms effort into effortless, deeply satisfying engagement. The capacity for profound focus, for transformative deep work, isn't a mystical gift reserved for a select few. It is a precise neurological state that you can cultivate, activate, and sustain. Equip yourself with this profound understanding of your brain's 4% code and watch as your productivity, your creativity, and your very approach to every single task become profoundly optimized. Continue this journey of neural mastery, because what we uncover next could be even more impactful for your cognitive landscape.